Good afternoon, one and all. Welcome back to Crimes Against Folk.
Hello.
How's it going, folks?
It's going good.
Going all right, eh?
Yeah,
Doing
I don't
what
know
we
if you were
can.
talking to me, but
Oh yeah, no, I'm always talking to you, to you,
it's
and
weird. I'm the only one that can answer, so at least audibly.
yeah. I mean, I imagine everyone else is just is also talking.
Yeah,
So
hopefully.
yeah, hopefully.
I would be.
Welcome back to Crimes Against Folk. Thanks for joining us today. And we have a pretty cool story today, I reckon.
Yeah.
Today we're talking Miss Sharon Jones,
Ooh,
the dynamo. I would definitely describe her as a dynamo.
dynamo is a good word.
She's just one of the most amazing performers I think the world has ever seen, and her along with Daptone Records and the Dap Kings, I think reinvigorated, maybe not necessarily resurrected. I think they did a part in resurrecting this, but also reinvigorated the kind of classic soul sound that some artists have been doing all this time, and she kind of just brought it out into the forefront once again,
Yeah.
which is super cool.
Yeah.
Really exciting to see. And we'll do a little show and tell, a little video. You know the drill.
Yeah. It's a Podumentary Day.
It is Podumentary Day.
It's also still Black History Month.
Yep.
So
So
this is last week we brought you Elizabeth Cotton.
yeah, it was super cool.
Yeah, and this week we have Sharon Jones, two amazing women who really paved the way in their genres of music in different, very, very different ways, with very, very different stories and very, very different timelines.
Yeah.
So Ed's gonna take the reins on today, and I'm quite excited to learn more about Sharon Jones myself. We listened to a lot of her music on the road, and
Yeah.
I really enjoy it. And I know a little bit about her story, but not much.
Yep. I'll do my best to kind of fill in the gaps there, and also kind of try to give some background into their sound as well, because I think it is almost as unique as Sharon Jones herself is. So yeah, we'll go ahead and get started. And again, today we're trying a new video setup, and so it's a little there'll be a little more gymnastics involved, so there may be bigger gaps. I'll probably misfire a few times, so just just fair
Yeah.
warning.
I'm super excited though because most of you guys know, like, I mean, the bulk of our issues when we have internet problems are because I don't have very good Wi-Fi here in Ramona, and I have the best I can possibly get, and it's just not very good. But I'm super excited because I just signed up for Starlink.
Woo,
Yeah.
the
So
future.
I'm in the future. So I got an email, and I think Ed clued me into
I
Starlink or something.
I've clued you into it, and it's funny because we were talking about it. We were talking about the internet woes, and
Yeah.
I'm like, well, they just expanded the beta, but I think it's only for the northern U.S. And then like a
Yes.
day later, you got an email.
Well, and what's even weirder is Brad and I were on a hike, and we were talking about the Wi-Fi issues, and I was telling him how we're because Ed and I have been considering even like me going inland and like working from San Diego somewhere on Sundays just to get better Wi-Fi, and And I was telling him that, and he's like, "It's just too bad Starlink isn't available yet." And I get home, and I'm not kidding you. We like sit down to eat lunch, and I get an email notification that's like, "Starlink is now available in your area." I was like, "What?" I was like, "Can you do this, Brad? Say we need $1 million."
Yeah.
Like,
Hurry up.
so Starlink is, I believe, it's an Elon Musk thing, isn't
Yeah,
it?
it's a company. It's one of his companies. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, so it's satellite internet, and they're really working to make this the new Tesla of the internet world, I guess.
Well, traditionally, in people in the areas that like Ashley would live in, or out just in the middle of nowhere where you just can't get decent internet, you have to settle for satellite internet. Traditionally, like HughesNet is a probably the biggest one at the moment, but it's horrifically expensive, and the speeds are not great. They're okay, but the latency is astronomical, literally, because it has to go out all the way out to space to
Right.
orbit and then back. So the latency is in the like 200 millisecond range to 300. But with Starlink, they are doing low Earth orbit satellites, which are much closer to Earth. So the signal doesn't have to go as far, and so they're able to get really good speeds apparently so far. Really good speeds with like regular kind of latency, like the latency you would get if you were using a cell phone connection, or maybe a slower, maybe like a DSL. So it's somewhere in like the 30 to 40 range, which is much better than what it was.
Oh yeah.
So hopefully that'll come through pretty soon for you.
Hopefully, if you guys are having, you guys can check it out too. I think it's Starlink.net or com, one of those. But yeah, it is very expensive. I mean, it's not crazy,
No.
but the other problem is so you get a kit and you have to set it up yourself, I guess, which will be interesting. But they said, cool, well, it'll arrive anywhere between 1 and 6 months.
Yeah, they're very slowly rolling this out because they're still launching the satellites that make this work. So
Yeah.
they're very slowly rolling it out to people, I think. But I think they also realize that people really want it because there's a lot of America that isn't covered by good internet. So this
Yeah.
is this is going to be the only other option people have. So I think they are kind of champing at the bit to get it out there.
Yeah, I'm glad there's another option, and hopefully it works. So
Yeah.
I will be one of the first to test it out, and I'll let you guys know. I'll keep you updated as when I get it and how it goes.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see how it works too.
Yeah, yeah, I'm definitely like, a lot of this is the curiosity element. When I got the email, I'm like, I am gonna jump on this because I am
Yeah,
curious.
just because so many people do have to rely on satellite internet, and
Mhm.
it's just not as good as it could be. So anything that can make it better, I think, is good.
Yeah.
We also want to thank our sponsor EV.
Thank you.
Thanks to Electro Voice for providing us with our awesome mics for this podcast. These RE20 Blacks are great.
Yeah.
And they make a lot of really good equipment. So if you want to find out more about Electro Voice, go to electrovoice.com. And many thanks to our patrons for helping us and sponsoring us throughout this podcast adventure. If you would like to become a patron of the podcast, you can go to patreon.com/crimesagainstfolk. You can get pretty much everything that we're doing on there for $5 a month. Lots of cool stuff, bonus concerts, bonus show and tell, bonus
Worth
we
it.
share tips and tricks, stuff like that. So
Yeah.
um,
It's a fun community. If you guys are not,
yeah,
well, we love our patrons. We love you guys. If and
open
if you
threads, all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah, and the community we're building is really awesome. We're so happy to
mhm.
have you guys part of it, and we encourage everyone to join because, again, it's only $5 a month, and it's just super fun. There's so much exclusive stuff that you're getting aside from this podcast in it. So,
Yeah,
and we wanted to make the bulk of it available to the $5 tier. So
yep,
don't be scared. Join us. I swear, it's fun. It's worth it.
it's cool.
You're gonna love it.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, with that out of the way, Let's get into the podcumentary
Let's talk about Sharon
about
Jones.
Sharon Jones. So we're going to start here with a little video clip.
100 days, 100 nights to know a man's heart. 100 days, 100 nights to know a man's heart. And a little more before he knows his own. You know a man can play the part of a saint just so long. For a day comes when his true self unfolds. Yes, it does. He may be mellow, he may be kind, treat you good all the time. But there's something just beyond what he's told. Hey, 100 days, 100 nights to know a man's heart. 100 days.
So this gives you an example of Sharon Jones and the incredible sound that she has. And that this particular video is great, I think, because it was just shot in such a cool manner.
Yeah.
Like the video for 100 Days, 100 Nights just had such a neat look to it that I think it looked exactly like how they would play, like how they would do videos back in the 60s. And it was shot the same way. They did the same weird camera fades. It looked like it was a TV broadcast on an old like European show about American music or something. I think
Yeah. Truly.
and
It's
just
like a true throwback. Like it does not, it feels like it came out like in the 60s.
yeah,
Not,
if I hadn't if no one told you otherwise, you would have thought that video was done in like 1967. But that was actually done in 2007, I believe. So, Sharon Jones was born in Augusta, Georgia in 1956. She was the youngest of 6 kids.
wow.
And she and mentioned in the documentary she always wound up taking care of people. I think that was just her role in life. She was the caretaker. They moved out and went to Brooklyn to escape domestic abuse, of course. And that's really where Sharon Jones grew up. Those were her formative years, were in Brooklyn, New York. And she started performing in wedding bands, funk bands, backup singing, lead singing, anything she could do to just sing, because that's one of the things she figured out as a kid that she loved to do, was she loved to sing. And she was pretty great at it, even from a young age. She formed a bunch of different bands with people, and one of the I remember seeing in the documentary, one of the bands that she formed was like just a funk / wedding band, included the 2 backup singers that would eventually become the Dapettes in her band. So the people that she's worked with for a very, very long time. But all this time, I mean, she's doing all these bands, she's doing all this music. She's trying to make it too, just like all of us. we're all trying to like make it whatever that means. And a lot of times back in those days, back in I'd say probably the 80s or so, 70s, 80s, to make it was to get on the radio, get played on the radio, get a record deal, that kind of thing. But unfortunately for Sharon Jones, she got hit with the with the four-time with the four-time smackdown of being, quote, too fat, too black, too short, and too old.
Oh,
That's what a record exec told her in the 90s when she was trying to get a deal.
wow.
I mean, that's just, I mean, it's already difficult for black women to do anything in this country a lot of the time. It's not impossible, but it's very, very difficult. And so the fact that not only she was called too fat and too black and too short and too old, it's just like, well, geez, what else is there? You might think to yourself sometimes, like what else am I too much of? And that, why is that a bad thing? You know?
Yeah.
And the two black one gets me because that's something that's a real thing that some people, even within the black community, you have to wrestle with, because outside of the black community there's tended to be a predilection towards lighter skinned African Americans in pop music, in pop culture. People are always trying to get them to lighten their skin if they can, all that kind of stuff. And even within the community, sometimes there's like there's this thing of like, oh, somebody's not black enough. Sometimes there's this weird kind of like the measure of blackness is a really strange thing. So when that's the one that stuck out the most to me. It's like,
Yeah.
she's too black. What is that supposed to mean?
That is so weird. What does that mean?
I mean,
But also, so basically, we're dealing with ageism, racism, and sexism.
yep, all in one fell swoop.
That's a trifecta of
Mm-hmm.
stuff to overcome.
And fat shaming on top of that.
Oh, right, that too. Yeah.
So, so yeah, that was a little dismaying, but she kept working odd jobs. Famously, she was an armored car guard and a corrections officer, amongst other things that she would do in her 20s and 30s. And in 1996, Gabriel Roth, who's also, I think his stage name or his other name was called Bosco Man, he's a bassist and a producer. And he hired Sharon Jones at age 40 to sing background vocals for deep funk artist Lee Fields. I don't know if anybody's a Lee Fields fan out there. Another artist you really, really need to check out. Lee Fields is amazing. And I'll mention him again a little bit later. But they, according to what I read, they had hired 3 background singers for these sessions, and she was the only one that showed up. So this another
crazy.
spoke in this story is, so far we've learned you're never too old to get a good gig, and just show up.
Doesn't that ring true?
Yeah.
A lot. Like,
Yeah.
oh, I don't know. I showed up.
Yeah, right? Like the person who
Yeah.
shows up is infinitely more usable and better than the person who doesn't show up.
You know what? Well, this is one of the things that you've heard me say, like I say it in a very different way, but I've said it time and time again, like on this podcast and to my coaching clients and just like personally, is like, yeah, the squeaky wheel. It's good.
Yep.
Like that's why you got to email somebody 20 times sometimes before you get a reply because you did. You're
Yep.
the one that emailed them 20 times. And nobody else did that. So
Absolutely.
just show up and show up a lot.
That's the show. Yeah, that's showing up. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And especially if you get hired for something, you got to show up,
Yeah.
if you
And
can.
there's like so many amazing artists and singers in this world. So yeah, you really got it. That's I like this Sharon Jones already.
Yeah. Yep. So she was 40 when she started working with uh, Gabriel Roth.
Wow.
And they liked what she was doing so much, they started recording singles and other. This was on a different label for Daptone. But they started recording singles and other kind of songs and B-sides and stuff with her on the lead because, like, wow, she's so good. Like, come on.
Yeah.
So Roth and Jones, together with saxophonist Neil Sugarman, formed the Dap Kings and started Daptone Records. And it's like, if you've never seen photos of Daptone Records, I'll see if I can maybe throw some in the notes, or you just look up online or watch a documentary because they show a lot of Daptone Records. They have a little. It's basically this really like rundown little tenement in Brooklyn, and it's where all this magic happens. But it is really like just it looks awful from the outside. Like, it's not, because some studios, they go out of their way to look like super cool and very pristine, and they have all kinds of stuff around. This is like if you're still recording in somebody's basement. So it's kind of awesome how much they got out of this place. And Sharon Jones helped Roth build this place. She did some of the electrical wiring herself, and they literally built Daptone Records together out of this place, and started working together with some other Brooklyn area musicians that they had worked with previously. They released their first album, Dap Dippin', with Sharon Jones and the Dap Kings in 2002. And it kind of just landed, and people started saying like, wow, what is this? Who is this? Especially a lot of DJs. A lot of DJs are spinning their stuff. And I think it's because the way they did it, they recreated also this style that, again, just sounded like exactly like the old 60s records that these people grew up on. That Sharon and even Gabe Roth, who's much younger, but also grew up on this kind of music. So, just as an example, I'm going to just play the introduction from Dap Dippin' with the Dap Kings, and you'll kind of get an idea of the energy that they were going for. So, this is the introduction track from Dap Dippin' with Sharon Jones and the Dap Kings.
Get it. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Daptone Super Soul Review. My name is Binky Griptight, and we are the Dap Kings. Thank you very much. Right now, for your enjoyment and pleasure, we would like to introduce to you the funky and dynamic sister who is exciting dance floors across the nation with her dynamic new sound. Soul brothers and sisters from coast to coast get up and get down whenever her records are played. They're doing all the funky new dances. They're doing the bump and touch. They're doing the dap dip. Everything. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm talking about 110 pounds of soul excitement coming for you. This sister is so bad, she's badder than bad. I'm talking about the same sister that brought you such hits as The Landlord, Damn It's Hot, Ain't It Hard, Bam! And now, ladies and gentlemen, the star of our show, the super soul sister with the magnetic je ne sais quoi, Miss Sharon Jones. Miss Sharon Jones. Miss Sharon Jones.
Hello, Milwaukee.
Miss Sharon Jones.
Y'all ready to get down?
Give it up, ladies and gentlemen.
That is just the coolest thing.
That is so cool.
I know, it's like I just get this big smile on my face whenever I listen to that, because it's so authentic. Like, this is something you would have seen. It's like a almost perfect emulation of something you would have done with like James Brown,
Yeah, totally.
and I just love it. I just absolutely love it. So that's kind of what they were aiming for in the genesis of the Dap Kings with Sharon Jones. After Dap Dippin', they did three more albums. Naturally, 100 Days, 100 Nights, and I Learned the Hard Way. My favorite personally is 100 Days, 100 Nights.
Me too.
But there are some. I mean, I have just tracks I love on all of these different albums, and it's just. But even just so far as that, it's just fun music to listen to because it's so authentic. That it's almost hard to believe that it was done, only like 10, 11, 12 years ago.
Yeah.
And as they started to do these albums, they started to gain a bit more notoriety, which was really cool, because they started playing bigger concerts, they started playing bigger festivals, they started getting noticed by other people in the industry. Mainly I think on the back of Sharon Jones' dynamic nature, and I wanted to play a clip showcasing that nature, and also bringing along a special guest that crashed their party
I know what you're gonna play.
one time in Paris. They were playing in Paris one time, and somebody crashed the party. But I also wanted to play a little bit of this clip just to show you what she was like in the in a live situation, because it's just like she's just like a freight train on speed. It's just there's nothing you can do to slow her down. So this is a clip of Sharon Jones playing at a festival in Paris. Load this up here. So there you go. Um, Sharon Jones, visited by the one and only Prince,
Yeah.
um, in Paris at a festival, and
Ed was saying that was totally unplanned.
oh
It's
yeah,
just, yeah, it's just, he was just so moved by what was happening. He just threw a guitar on and walked out there.
yeah, he just crashed the party, and it's just like, of all the people to crash the party, just Prince walking on stage and playing guitar in your song.
Yeah, there's only like a handful of people that could get away with that.
Yep, and Prince is absolutely one of them.
Prince be one.
One of the other things I hope that you noticed too, in the presentation, and this you hopefully would notice in the initial video too, is the band choreography. Everybody moves the same way, and that's important. Like, that's one of the most important parts of the whole ensemble. Like, you see it in all of the older bands, all the older R&B bands. Everybody moves the same way, except for Sharon Jones. She does what she wants, but everybody's just moving back and forth, with that kind of funk soul step, and I just love it. Like, they've got that, and everybody does it. So I just love watching that as a person who's been in that position before. Like, I've never been asked to do that, but I get it. Like, because everybody's got to be coordinated. And then if I ever did it with somebody else, if we're just like, if it was in Hazard or something, and we would just start doing that on accident, it was always really fun. We never choreographed it like the Dap Kings would have, but
I love it. I
yeah,
do.
it's nice. It's a nice backdrop,
Yeah.
to everybody, to what the front person's doing.
Yeah.
So, in 2012, Sharon Jones and the Dap Kings started recording "Give the People What They Want." But in the middle of this record, I think they'd finished the recording, or they were almost done with it. In 2013, Sharon Jones was diagnosed with stage 2 pancreatic cancer. So the basically stopped the touring they were doing, and delayed the album release by about a year. Initially, they thought it was bile duct cancer, but they, I think, revised it to pancreatic cancer. So she underwent surgeries, and they were able to get her clear of the cancer in 2014. And it was kind of touching because, again, going back to the documentary. During that time, she spent some time in upstate New York with a friend that she'd met ages ago, and who Sharon sang at her wedding. I'm blanking on her name right now, but she was a nutritionist and kind of holistic health expert. So it was kind of perfect that Sharon was able to stay with her and help her, and she was able to help Sharon start to get better. I think she was instrumental in getting Sharon Jones back on the road, and I'm sure extending her life at least a little bit. And it just made me think, like, of all the people that we rely on when we're touring. It was kind of neat because I'm like, yeah, okay. Like, I mean, this is obviously a heavier burden because somebody's going through cancer,
Yeah.
and going to chemo all the time and everything like that. But it just shows that, the fans and the friends are a lot of times the support structure that a musician has, where it would normally be a family, in a lot of other people's cases. But in our case, a lot of times it's friends and family, because we're not near our family, or maybe they're gone, or maybe they don't like what we're doing, or any number of reasons. And so
Well,
I think,
and in the music world in particular, I mean, we build families. I mean, a lot of you
Yeah.
guys who are listening right now are included in that. I mean, when Ed and I do relate to that totally, because when we show up to a new city, it's like, and we, stay with our people, or get together with lunch with our people, like we feel very close to you guys.
Yeah.
And when we show up, it's like, oh, we're with our Litchfield family, or we're with
Mm-hmm.
our St. Louis family, or with our Morro Bay family. Like, you build these little communities, and it feels very real for us. And so I that's really endearing. And I know Ed, like, especially the actual musicians that we play with too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I think these people these people are instrumental,
Yeah.
and for Sharon Jones especially, they were instrumental because this woman, Megan is her name, and she helped Sharon heal. And so after the surgeries were successful, she was done with the chemo. They went back on the road in 2014 and released "Give the People What They Want," which finally got them a Grammy nomination for Best R&B Album. I don't believe it won, but they did get the nomination. So at least some people were recognizing what she was doing. Unfortunately, in 2015, the cancer had returned, and the pancreatic cancer is one of those really, really tough ones. That's just really difficult to get through. So she did as much as she could, but unfortunately passed away in Cooperstown, New York, in 2016. She was part of the 2016 sad number of deaths. Everybody died in 2016.
Who else? We mentioned
Prince.
which
Prince
is crazy,
also.
because that video. And who else?
Carrie
died?
Fisher.
Oh, right.
Oh my gosh! I mean, there were so many that year.
Yeah.
But yeah, unfortunately, Sharon Jones is one of them. They have released a couple of posthumous albums. Daptones has been able to do that. Like, they released an album of covers that they all did, which is really good. They released a Christmas album, holiday numbers that they did with her as well. But again, it's one of those things where it's really great that she finally got the recognition that she did. She toured worldwide. She started playing bigger shows. Prince played on a song with her in the middle of a concert. She got to be on the Ellen Show, and she got to be on Conan O'Brien, like all the late night circuits. They finally got to do all that stuff. That was during her recovery. That was post cancer. So she got to do all this stuff before she passed away. And again, her career really didn't start until she was 40. Before then, she was just, grinding out a career like everybody. And then she hits the one gig, meets the right people, and then starts, slowly taking off. And got some recognition, got some notoriety, well-deserved, before she passed away. So that's Sharon Jones' backstory. And I wanted to touch a bit on the sound that Sharon Jones and the Dap Kings crafted, because it's really, again, like it can't have escaped a lot of you listening that this sound sounds somewhat familiar. A lot of her biggest influences were like R&B greats like James Brown, Aretha Franklin, Sam Cooke, anybody in Motown, is where Sharon Jones and the Dap Kings, that's squarely where they were aiming at. Not even just in the songwriting, but also in the production of it. And so I wanted to compare a couple of songs here from who I would think would be her one of her contemporaries, or if they had a career kind of around the same time. I mean, James Brown had a career for a long, long time. So I've got a song here by James Brown, and we're going to compare that with one of Sharon Jones and the Dap Kings' uh, early tunes. And so I wanted to kind of just illustrate um, where Sharon Jones and the Dap Kings were kind of coming from. So this is a song you all be pretty familiar with. This is Papa's Got a Brand New Bag. Okay, so there's our James Brown, again, very famous song. These are not exact, I'm not trying to find ones that sounded exactly like it, but some that tried to capture kind of the spirit of what Sharon Jones and the Dap Kings are going for. So this is a track off of Dap Dippin' with Sharon Jones and the Dap Kings, their first big release off on Dap Tone. And this is called Got to Be the Way It Is. So there's Got to Be the Way It Is. That is off the first Sharon Jones and the Dap Kings album, Dap Dippin' with Sharon Jones and the Dap Kings. And the reason I picked those mainly was because they're both kind of this like up-tempo soul funk stuff that James Brown in particular I think was could be very famous for, especially live. But also that I think especially in the early part of their recording career, this was kind of their bread and butter, like this kind of up-tempo, kind of Afro backbeat soul, because you kind of hear the congas in the background doing some cool stuff, and the tambourine. There's this great like Afro beat undercurrent to a lot of soul in the definitely in the 70s, but also in the late 60s, and they kind of capture that almost perfectly in Sharon Jones and the Dap Kings, which I just love. I mean, that also helps it be so authentic and so true to that 60s and 70s sound.
I love when artists do that too, because it's great that we have all this new music, and the music is constantly reinventing itself, but
Yeah.
and like new sounds are constantly coming out. But I love when there's an artist like Sharon Jones that gives a true throwback to something. Like there's a lot of artists that give the throwback sound but with a modern twist. I mean, this is like pure 70s
Yeah.
kind of funk.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like it is nearly unmistakable from a lot of the 60s and 70s funk, like soul, funk, R&B, all that mashed together. It's a remarkable achievement
Yeah.
in my opinion, because I mean, not again, like I said, not even just in the sound, but in the songwriting too. Like the songs feel like they were written from that time period.
Yeah.
As an example of that, I'm gonna play a track, one of my favorite tracks of hers, off of 100 Days, 100 Nights, and this is called "Nobody's Baby."
I done left you here all by yourself. But it ain't my fault, baby. Oh, you treated me like a fool. And I tell you, it ain't my fault, baby. Oh, how that you treated me so cruel. But you know what? I ain't nobody's baby. I ain't nobody's fool. I ain't nobody's baby. Get yourself a new one. Get yourself a new one. It's a matter of fact. Well, I expect I can't tell you that. I say, if what you need is a good little soldier, well, I guess you better look again. Well, you know, I ain't nobody's soldier. Oh, no, I'm not. I'm a bona fide captain. 'Cause I ain't nobody's baby. I ain't nobody's fool.
That's "Nobody's Baby" from 100 Days, 100 Nights. And we were just remarking, yeah, like how incredible the bass line is.
That's so cool.
And it's simple, like it's really simple.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's that's the key, like just let it sit there, let it get out of the way. And it's so cool. And if you're hopefully, I would hope at some point, if you are, maybe you're listening to this on headphones, or if you're listening to these albums on headphones, you can notice a couple of interesting points with regard to the production on these albums. And you started to see it even more on 100 Days, 100 Nights, and on. It's kind of funny. Each album they took a slightly different tack with regard to production. Like on Dap Dippin', they really went the kind of like it's almost like the first album you make as an artist in the '60s. I mean, it's very, very lo-fi, very filtered out. But they do all of their recording on analog tape, and so they, I saw in the documentary, when you look inside the studio, I mean, there is nary a Pro Tools to be found. It's an 8-track Ampex analog tape machine, 2-inch tape machine, I believe. Or maybe it's a 1-inch. I have to look at it again. Either way, it's old. And that's kind of what they're going for. So they're using all older equipment, analog tape. It's how they're mixing, it's how they're editing. And with that, you get kind of a natural filter. I think the console that they're running through as well helps with that a lot too. And in the mastering process, they seem to kind of naturally filter off things. They make it as like they were doing an old record. And of course, they do all their stuff on vinyl, so it makes sense. But one of the things that I want I want you to listen for when you listen to this music, especially on 100 Days, 100 Nights, and I Learned the Hard Way, those two albums. They did a lot of hard panning, and what I mean by that is if there's a in a music, and when you're producing music, if you're panning something in a stereo field, a left or a right headphone, then you're moving it to the left or moving it to the right. And in modern times, you can kind of choose how far you want to go. You can go maybe a little bit to the left, or kind of halfway to the left, or maybe, half all the way to the left. But back in the 60s, a lot of consoles didn't have that option. They had buttons. You're either left or right or center. And so if you listen to a lot of old Beatles records, that when they started doing stereo, they did a lot of the same thing. They would put, and they would even do things like put the bass in the right speaker and the drums in the left speaker, and other guitars, hard left, hard right, and then the vocals and everything else in the center. So you did create the stereo field, but there wasn't much of one. Everything was kind of either pushed out to the sides or in the center until they started getting consoles that could vary the amount of panning that you could go left or right. So they mimic that again, especially in 100 Days, 100 Nights, they mimic that kind of hard panning on a lot of stuff. So if you listen to it in headphones, it's kind of a treat because it's just way, way over on the edge of your ear when you're listening to it. One of the things they also went for with some of their productions was they kind of tapped into the production style, the arrangement style of the Wall of Sound. And if you don't know what the Wall of Sound is, it is a production technique pioneered by Phil Spector, who actually I think died this year or late last year, and who made kind of the 60s sound, if you will. So to give you a little bit of comparison, like they don't go full in, the Dap Kings didn't go full in, but they did kind of arrange some of their productions like that. And so I'll give you a little bit of a comparison here. So I've got the Ronettes, who were a very famous group out of Phil Spector's label, and one of the groups you think of when you think about the Wall of Sound. So we're going to play a little bit of their hit, "Be My Baby." So that's a kind of classic example of the Wall of Sound. Just heavy reverb. It sounds like you're just in a giant room. And the Dap Kings aimed at this a little bit with some of their productions. And so I'm going to play an example. A good example, I think, of that, and one of my favorite songs of theirs, which is "She Ain't a Child No More." And this is from "I Learned the Hard Way."
She used to run when you raise your hand. She ain't a child no more. She ain't a child no more. She was too young then to understand.
right. So that was She Ain't a Child No More. That's from I Learned the Hard Way. That's probably my favorite song of theirs.
Oh yeah, it's a really
Yeah.
cool song.
It's just a super cool song, like a cool chord movement. And again, like parts of that production, they were really aiming for kind of the R&B wall of sound thing, especially with the guitar, especially with some of the drums and horns and stuff like that. Again, just one of their hallmarks. They weren't expressly trying to recreate that sound. I think just it was in the back of their head and they just did it. Like they had really good musicians. Like the Dap Kings as a band are just phenomenal musicians. They had this legendary kind of once in a lifetime singer in Sharon Jones. And so when you pair the right equipment with the right musicians, then this kind of stuff is fairly easy to do. It's fairly like painless. You don't have to be like, well, we need to tweak these filters and do this just right. Like you try to recreate this in digitally, it would be very difficult. It would be very difficult to make it authentic. Like there are so many pieces of this sound that need to click to make it authentic. So it's why you don't hear many bands do stuff like this.
Yeah.
Because it's really hard to get all the little pieces together, get the good musicians, get the good producers, the good songwriters, the right equipment, all of that stuff has to click in order to make these sounds kind of work.
They used to do it all the time in the 60s.
Exactly. Like it's changed. Like the production mindset has changed so much that it's so much harder to do now.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, it's not necessarily, I don't know, in my opinion, new music isn't better. It's just different.
It's just different.
It's hard to recreate that sound. It's hard to recreate an older sound.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy to recreate a newer sound.
Yep, absolutely. So that kind of breaks down what the Daptones and with Sharon Jones were doing. Like they really just aimed straight for this amazing 60s sound, and by God, they nailed it. The Dap Kings were also managed to work with some other groups. I think, again, largely because of the profile that Sharon Jones gave them. I mean, the Daptones, those musicians were all really good, kind of on their own, and they had all their little groups scattered around. But bringing them together behind Sharon Jones, I think, was the key to the Daptones getting more notoriety and more work and all that kind of stuff. I mean, heck, right towards the end of the documentary, I think the trumpet player was leaving the band because he was going to play with the Roots on Jimmy Fallon.
Oh, wow.
Like that's, it arguably Sharon Jones had raised their profile so much, and raised the profile of this type of music. This is not even neo soul. Neo soul is something totally different. This is just soul, soul reborn, if you want to give it a name. But there are other artists that have kind of, I think, resurfaced and had kind of garnered more notoriety. Thanks, I think, in large part to Sharon Jones' success and the success of the Dap Kings, Daptone Records. There's a couple artists on there. A couple of them have been around for a while that have kind of similar sounds to Sharon Jones, the Dap Kings. Lee Fields is an example of he's a what they call a deep funk artist. I learned about this term a couple days ago.
Yeah, I don't know. There's so many subgenres out there. It's crazy. it's just like really cool kind of, again, funk with a heavy Afro beat behind it. And I wanted to give a little bit of an example of what Lee Fields' sound is like. And he's been around a long time. He's been performing and recording records and being out there kind of as an artist since the 70s.
But I think he had his career and then it kind of quieted down and then it resurfaced again. He had a kind of a semi breakout album in 2012 called Faithful Man. And so I'm going to play the title track for that real quick here.
I've always been a faithful man till you came along. I've always been a grateful man. I've always been a faithful man. Don't you make me do wrong. Don't you make me do wrong. I've always been a faithful man till you came along. I was just hanging out, trying to clear my mind. I saw you eyeing me.
So that's Lee Fields, deep funk legend. And that wasn't he has his own band, it's Lee Fields and the Expressions. But he is on Daptone Records, the label that Sharon Jones and the Dap Kings created. He is on that label now, and I'm thinking, it seems like that label is gathering a lot of these kind of deep funk artists and like soul artists, that really want to keep this legacy of soul music, traditional soul music alive. And another example of that is Charles Bradley. And Charles Bradley, interestingly, had a very similar career trajectory to Sharon Jones, in that he had been playing and he'd been in bands for many, many years. Did some work as like a James Brown impersonator, James Brown cover band and stuff like that. And again, but had kind of his success really kind of hit even bigger right around when Sharon Jones, the Dap Kings were hitting, because that sound was becoming very popular again. And so I wanted to play a little example of something he's done. This is actually a cover that he recorded shortly before he passed away in 2017. And this is a Black Sabbath song called Changes.
I feel unhappy. I feel so sad. I have lost the best friend that I ever had. She was my woman. I love her so. But it's too late now. I let her go. I'm going through changes. I'm going through changes in my life. Oh, baby. Oh, nah.
So that's Charles Bradley. covering Black Sabbath with a song called Changes. And I just, if I could, I just want to take a quick aside here and mention how interesting it is that when Ozzy Osbourne found out that Charles Bradley had covered this, he listened to it and he said, "I couldn't believe it. It's like the best version of this song I've ever heard." And Charles Bradley had no idea who Ozzy Osbourne was.
What?
But I think someone had suggested that he sing this song, and he was like, I don't know if I want to sing this song. But he had recently, when he was working on the song, I think his mother had passed away. And when he saw the lyrics, he's like, wow, these lyrics are just perfect. Like, they just hit me. And so they worked up this song, and it's, I think, one of his biggest hits, oddly enough. And
It's a really cool version of it.
I know.
I can't. I have to listen to the original. I'm sure it's quite different though. But
Yeah.
it's very, very cool.
It's cool, and it's, to me, a little aside I wanted to take was that just it's this kind of fun tradition of African American artists covering like rock songs, which happen quite a bit. But I think there are some popular ones I want to note here real quick. Wilson Pickett did an entire album called "Hey Jude." It was a bunch of different songs, like a bunch of original songs, but he did two covers on there. He did "Hey Jude," the Beatles song, and he covered "Born to Be Wild" by Steppenwolf. And they're amazing. Like, if you won't even think about these songs the same way when you hear them done this way. And the other one I wanted to mention was a woman named Mary Clayton. And most of you would know Mary Clayton as the woman who sang on that really famous Rolling Stones song. It's just a shot away.
Oh, yeah.
It's just, yeah, that's Mary Clayton. And she did her own album, and she did a cover of Neil Young's Southern Man, which just kills me. It kills me. It's so good. And just thinking about like her singing that song as an African American woman, it's just like, it's like extra, it's extra heavy. But it's so good. So I'm always got my ear to the ground for stuff like that. But yeah, just a little quick aside about that after seeing that Charles Bradley did this. And this is sort of the progeny of what Sharon Jones and the Dap Kings had created at Daptone. Not only that, but members of the Daptones had also collaborated on a number of different projects by other artists, including Back to Black by Amy Winehouse, the original version of Honeymoon Avenue by Ariana Grande, and Woman by Kesha. Daptones had collaborated on all of those. Unfortunately, it didn't include Sharon Jones in them, which I think was a big mistake.
That's so funny though, because I remember like a group of singer songwriters when Kesha came out with Woman.
Yeah.
We were like, what is up with our newfound love for Kesha? What is happening? And that explains everything.
She just needed the right band behind her.
Yeah. I mean, it was like, what? Why am I a Kesha fan? Seriously?
I mean, the part of it just being a really good song. I mean, Woman is a very good song.
Yeah.
But the addition of the Daptones production folks, or at least the Daptones, I think the horns and possibly a couple others, helped a lot.
The production of it in particular, I think, it just blew me away. So
And
that's pretty cool.
The Honeymoon Avenue song in particular by Ariana Grande, I gave that a little bit of a listen, and it's really interesting juxtaposition between, because I think it's the full band playing with her, but there's like, it's her kind of voice and her kind of vocal production a little bit overlaid over this classic like kind of sounding band. And it's really interesting. I actually kind of liked it.
Huh.
I don't think that's the version that went to release, but that's a version apparently a lot of DJs play. But it was really cool. And then you listen to Back to Black by Amy Winehouse, and you kind of see, okay, this is this is the sound they were trying to pull out
Yeah.
of kind of African American soul music.
Yeah.
Like they
that
did
would
kind of
make
just
sense to me.
pull the strands out of it, but yeah, so this is the legacy that Sharon Jones has left us with. Just a collection of incredible music that is expertly produced, and it's probably the most authentic soul music you're going to get this side of 1967. There's nothing. I mean, there are a couple of artists that get close, but nothing I think really like Leon Bridges.
I was gonna want
He
to,
gets
yeah, I was
he gets
wondering if you were
close.
gonna- Yeah, he does. It's like, do you know who produced him? I thought it was Daptone, but I guess not.
I don't know who produced him. I'm gonna look real quick though. Um, I don't know who produced his stuff. But it's close. Like it's
Yeah.
close to that classic sound. And early Michael Kiwanuka stuff
Right.
also was pretty close. But nothing really just there's like how there's like that sense of taste, or that's that kind of flavor sense called umami. That's like it's kind of like savory-ish. Like you can't really explain it. You just like it's kind of savory-ish.
Yeah.
That's what they did in music form. Like there's something about it that just it feels correct. What they did, they had the musical umami, and
Good analogy, Ed.
because it's something that's a little bit intangible. It's a little bit hard to describe, but once you hear it, you're like, oh yeah, that's. You could trick people with this music. You could say this was done in 1969 or 1967, and they'd believe you.
Totally. Totally. It's not that different.
No. So I thought I'd leave you with one of the kind of fun, very, very James Brown-esque songs from Sharon Jones and the Dap Kings. Even in the title, it's kind of just the perfect song for this to leave us with. It's called Pick It Up, Lay It in the Cut.
Pick it up, y'all. Lay it in the cut.
Miss Sharon Jones.
Lovely. Great job, Ed.
Thank you.
I like how you talk about the sound of these artists when you do your podcumentaries, and I like how I mean it's just like I feel like that's how I want to be remembered.
Yeah, right? Like
Yeah.
for like, hey, I created this cool sound or thing that is unique, or at least, unique enough to be remembered. Yeah, I get that.
Yeah, I mean, and part of that comes with what your accomplishments. I feel like it can kind of tie together somehow. But I mean, it's especially as an art. I think any artist is going to want to be remembered by their sound versus who they are.
Yeah.
Personality, who cares?
Yeah. Well, some artists don't have a great personality, so I think they'd rather be remembered by their sound.
Some artists is better off that way.
Yeah, yeah.
They say never meet your heroes. So.
Thank you. Yeah, that was pretty cool. It's a good excuse to listen to Sharon Jones music again.
Yeah. And I said, did any of our listeners end up watching the documentary? I didn't. I forgot I was going to, but I do want to watch the documentary now.
It's really good. You'll have to you have to. I don't think it's streaming anywhere. You have to like rent it or buy it or whatever.
Okay.
But it is very good. Again, it is kind of, it's sort of a chronicle of her going through her initial treatments for pancreatic cancer while trying to kind of, it does talk a little bit kind of about how she met the group and kind of goes into what they're working on and stuff. It kind of jumps back and forth between those two things. But it is really good because you do kind of get, I think watching it as a musician, I really appreciated it because there's like a lot of just real world stuff that Sharon is trying to deal with in addition to dealing with the sickness.
Yeah.
Like responsibilities to her bandmates and to herself and all that stuff. And that's stuff that I think musicians can relate to. I mean, anybody can really, but if you're a musician, sometimes you might forget about that.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh yeah, wait, there's these things, or if you're at a certain level, I'm sure you're always thinking about that. If you've hired people, you're trying to be like, man, like, I hope I can pay my band this week or something, So I think it's a good look into her kind of journey through dealing with cancer, because it was made and released before she died. So I think it was released in 2015 and then she died in 2016. So
Well, hopefully she got to see it.
yeah, I think so. I hope so. I think it's on Amazon. I think you can rent it on any of the services. I rented it on Apple TV.
What's it called again?
Just Miss Sharon Jones.
Oh, okay.
I thought it was very good.
Yeah.
I thought it was very good. So
Yeah.
yeah. So we'll move on here to some do a little video of ours.
All right.
And I chose this one, I guess, because I don't think we've played this one in the show yet, but I liked the this was kind of a fun trip. We did a couple of music videos at the chapel in Harmony, California. Population is still 14, I'm guessing. At this point, I don't know how hard they've been hit by COVID. I hope not.
Oh God.
Yeah, 'cause it would wipe out the town if it
Yeah.
got bad enough.
The percentage could be dangerous.
Yeah. But a few years ago, we did a couple of live videos there with our videographer, filmmaker guy. Howard Ignatius. And I thought I'd share one of those with y'all right now. This is Sanctuary. This is the one we did at Harmony Chapel. No, actually, no.
Clapper.
We had a choice to make. We had a world to save. A sacrifice was all that it would take. Without a pause for thought, a soul-bound weapon sought to vanquish evil from this sacred place. Her life was given up so that we would endure. The world we had was base and impure. Anew we made with love, we plant the seeds and tend. The sanctuary would grow again. Sun shafts start through the trees and dance among the breeze. They strike my face with a familiar ease. This forest gave me life and opened up my eyes. Here I was born and here I hope to die. The sun, to catch the sun, I climbed the redwood arms to guard the canopy from our foes. It's true, I knew that I had been immortal once, but this was not the fate that I chose. Stoic resplendency, enshrined among the leaves, their veins connected to the history. 1,000 years, embracing nature's tears, to give their shelter to the creatures here. This light I give to you, they gave to me before, to ward the forces that can restore. My son, my only son, today becomes the day. The sanctuary calls you a man.
Oh, 2018.
Correction, no, it's population 18, not 14.
Oh, wow, they grew 4 people.
Well, I don't know. I think it may have been 18 by the time. May have been 18 the time we did it. That's what the video said.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Oh, right.
But I don't know what it is now. I wonder if it's grown or
I wonder if it's
shrunk.
still for sale. Remember, it's like the town of Harmony is for sale for like $1.2 million.
Oh yeah.
You could buy the whole town.
Oh,
Which
that's right.
kind of reminds me of Schitt's Creek a little bit. If you guys watched that show,
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
like buy that town. It's a joke.
Well, Wikipedia still says 2000, but I mean, they just did the census last year, so I don't know if that's going to be updated at all.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
But yeah, that was a pretty cool. That was a pretty neat experience. I was glad they let us do that. We did that. We did that song
Yeah.
in Razor.
Yeah.
There, and this also dovetails quite nicely into our show and tell,
Show and tell time.
which is my video or my photo, and a photo here of a rather elegantly painted cow with little, I don't know what that crown is made out of. It's got some kind of tiara on it. And this was in Harmony. And
We found a few of those cows, didn't we? Like around
Yeah.
the world, even really. I feel like we saw them overseas somewhere too.
that's possible, yeah. And I just this one, I shared this one. I just thought because it's a cool picture, but just a random painted cow sitting next to the road. But I also I remember this because we were pulling into town, and Ash was giving me the rundown of what was going to happen. And so she's like, yeah, so Howard's already got the stuff in there. We're going to get set up. We're gonna park next to the cow, and then we're gonna walk in with all of our gear, get set up. And I was like, wait, what? Park next to the what?
The cow.
And then I saw the cow. And I was but it was the way you said it was completely nonchalant. Like I couldn't believe it. Like it's like the only time I think you've ever done that in the
That's
entire
hilarious.
time I've known you, and I still remember it. It was the funniest thing.
Well, you know what? You knew what I meant when you got there.
Oh yeah. I mean, there's not much there. You can't miss a cow that you would park next to. But it was in the middle of all of these other instructions.
Park by the cow. That's something we would say to do in Ramona for real, though.
Oh really?
Oh, yeah. Just park by the cow and then come on in. A lot of cows here.
That's funny.
A lot of cows.
Yeah, so I just thought that was I saw that pop up in my photo reel. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that.
The famous cow.
Yeah. There were a couple in that town, I think.
The Harmony is really cool. Like
Yeah.
my favorite hike actually is in Harmony.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's not a very strenuous hike, but it's kind of long.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think it's about 5 miles, and it's not hilly at all. It's all basically flat.
Oh.
But you hike like 2 miles in through these, because you kind of park like across from where we did that video. Across the street there's a small parking lot.
Mm-hmm.
And then you hike like 2 miles in. It's through all these like grasslands, and there's like hawks everywhere, and like a little lake, and just one kind of path that just cuts through the grass for like 2 miles. It's just really hilly and rolling and beautiful. And then at about like a mile and a half in, you see the ocean. And then the next half a mile is like this beautiful ocean view. And then you hike the coast for another 2 miles. And what's cool about it is you can kind of climb like down onto the little rocky beach and just play on the coast right like that. So I just think it's so beautiful because you so much, you get like this country scene with all the cows and the hawks and whatever, and we've seen deer in there and stuff too, and then you get the coast, and there's always, sea lions and whatever swimming around. I think we've seen whales out there too. So it's just like, there's just something really magical about that place.
Yeah.
There's nobody there. It's nice.
Yeah, it's really cool. That was a really cool time, and
Yeah,
I
back
thought
when
it
we
was.
can be in small spaces inside together.
Yep. So yeah, I guess that's pretty much all we had. I didn't pick a song, unfortunately, for the end.
Oh, I forgot.
But
to think about that. I usually do. That's usually my job, and I didn't think about it.
oh, that's
So
okay.
if you guys have a request and you throw it out and we can do it, we'll do it. So we'll wait a couple minutes since there's a delay, and if not,
Oh yeah.
then we'll come up with something. But yeah, great job today on the documentary, Ed.
Thank you.
That was a wonderful tribute to Sharon Jones, and again specifically to her music. It was really fun to listen to all those different styles and all that she influenced, and kind of came out around, like, not just like, you kind of spanned two different eras there, like back to the original and then the reboot. So it was really cool to hear some songs from both times.
Yeah, I think that's the coolest part is that, like, she drew so much inspiration from those artists that all of us know, like all of us are very familiar with, and then just sort of, kept preserved it, but also, like, it's all original music, that a lot of it's original music she did, which is just even more remarkable. Like, wow, this is brand new music, but it sounds like old music.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, it's cool.
oh, Alice says what I knew. I can do
Yeah.
that.
I'd say let's do it, but that's all on you, buddy.
Well, yeah, I'll go ahead and do that. Again, thanks to our sponsor, EV.
Yes.
If you want to know more about Electro Voice, go to electrovoice.com and check out all the stuff they have. It's pretty cool stuff. Thanks to all of our patrons. Again, patreon.com/crimesagainstfolk. You can join the community, join the discussion, get cool bonus stuff, and we would sure appreciate that support. We really do work hard to make that stuff happen. So,
Yeah.
and to make this podcast happen. So we thank all the patrons that are throwing in their support for that.
We love you guys. And if you have any requests on anybody to interview or to do a documentary on, just you can always throw it out in the Patreon community or in the Facebook group, and we would be happy to take a look at it and see if we could do it for a future show. That said, next week we're not entirely sure what our topic is yet. We plan to do an interview, but our guest that we had lined up had a personal emergency issue, so now we are sorting that out currently. So we'll let you guys know as soon as we have it figured out.
Yep.
Yeah.
But
And yes, that is a glockenspiel. That's I used to play that at our. I was just telling Ed while the video was playing for you guys that it's kind of a funny thing because I used to play it at our shows, and I would bring it out and I would only play it on like 2 or 3 songs because I'm not a great glockenspiel player. I'm an okay player, so it was really just for color parts. But I would bring it out and people would get so excited and be like, "Oh, we have a glockenspiel player." I'm like, "No, this is just like for effect, for a couple fun little things." And people would come up, especially at like drunk bars, and be like, "Could you play the glockenspiel? Do us rip out a solo." I was like, "No, I literally can't. Like, I actually don't know how." "Sure you can." And it just got really annoying, so
yeah.
I stopped. But I should bring it back out and just get over it because it is kind of fun.
Yeah, that's okay. I just I just remarked. I was like, oh, I kind of missed that, but
I kind
I
of
know
miss it
it's
too.
kind of a pain as well.
I have it. It's in this room somewhere. I've got the mallets right here for the
Yay.
start.
Just messing around with it. You should you record it for some of your stuff.
Yeah, I should. You're right.
Yeah,
That's a
that'd be
good
cool.
idea. Yeah.
Especially with the RE20. I bet it sound awesome with that.
Oh yeah,
'Cause
probably.
we
Yeah.
used the 57 in that recording, and that sounded pretty good. I can
Oh
only
wow.
imagine an RE20 would sound probably better.
Yeah, you're
So,
probably right.
all right, we'll leave you with this tune. This is an original called What I Knew. The moon revolves around the earth around the sun revolves around you because you are the one who dominates the lifetimes of thoughts I can't subdue. I had a love both young and old, that's just what I knew. Fire burns and also cleanses, tears do much the same. Both of them were inside of you and set my heart aflame. But the fires were put out fast, and tears left a sickly hue. You never were the same again, that's just what I knew. Did I ever feel bad for the urges that I had? Were they real or misdirection? Were they given without discretion? It was the real thing I felt for you. That's just what I knew. Time heals the wounded, medicine works too. Where did you hide your bottle? I already knew. Sleepless nights and restless days, trying to hide from your sunny gaze. The past was cruel, but I was too. That's just what I knew. Did I ever feel alive? Had I already died? What is life without your voice? Did I give you a choice? It wasn't my design to fall for you. That's just what I knew. Stubbornly I toss and turn, woken by the sound of the thought to police again. They must be gaining ground. And so I leave a letter by the fireside for you. I would have done it differently. I would have done for you. I would have loved you differently. That's just what I knew.
Very beautiful, Ed.
Thank you.
Gorgeous song. No, we have not released this. We kind of filmed that little video for that song. Remember Ed in Montana? We got like a few takes, but that Montana one is really cool. We could just release that. It's like one.
That's right.
Don't you have that?
I probably so. I gotta look. It's probably buried somewhere on the
Yeah,
drive.
you should look for it. And just honestly, I've been thinking of that for a while. Like just that video, like just in one take alone, is really cool. 'Cause
Yeah, because we were doing it. We were kind of testing out the DJI at the same
Yeah.
time. That's right. I gotta look for that.
yeah. So he'll have an afro in it, but it's
I remember that now. Yeah, thank you for
Yeah.
reminding me about that.
yeah. Yeah, but it's cool. I remember it being like, wow, that looked really good. That was like a cool spot. We were in Montana and we found this cool spot, and I kind of just circled around Ed and looked at it, and it looks cool.
Yeah, that was nice.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for hanging out.
Yeah.
Hope you learned a bit today, and check out Sharon Jones and the Dap Kings. You won't be disappointed. Check out pretty much anybody on the Dap Tone label. I think you're going to have a really good experience. Definitely Lee Fields and Charles Bradley as well. But Sharon Jones, the Dap Kings is where you should absolutely start and go out from there. If you're looking for some actual authentic soul music, some brand new soul music, then that's where you need to go. And thanks everybody. We really appreciate you guys chiming in on the chat and letting us know what's going on.
Yeah. Thank
So-
you guys. We'll see you next week.
We'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.